So let's just jump in. General Honoré, to begin, could you tell us about your early life and what motivated you to join the U.S. Army?
Well, I grew up on a subsistence farm in Lakeland, Louisiana. I come from a family of 12, and we most of what we ate we grew on the farm, and I was active in something called the 4-H Club and something called the New Farmers of America, which became the Future Farmers of America, and which sort of amplified the rural life and gave classes in safety with farm safety to herbicides to leadership and best farming practice, not only to produce more from the land, but to protect the land and to raise healthy foods on the farm and to help save that food once you've harvested and in canning process to proper butchering techniques to proper storage technique of that food. And at the same time, being mindful of the things that we had to use to increase our production, like fertilizer and at that time, chemicals to protect the crop, to make sure you didn't overuse it and preserve stored so it didn't have downstream impact or minimize downstream impact on the environment. So that came up as a topic in those youth programs that I was involved with from the time I was 10 years old until I finished college. I was active in those programs. And when I went to college, I studied vocational agriculture.
So you've been an environmental warrior for a great portion of your life.
Well, I'll give you the privilege of saying that and I'll accept it. But actually, at the time, the word environmental warrior, as we refer to it today, wasn't a concern. It was about being respectful of the land and the blessings, natural blessings we had to breathe clean air and eat safe food, and at the same time protect the land. But that was not a word in my lexicon that I grew up with as a youngster. I want to be honest with you.
Okay.
That came later in life as that discipline became evolved into what it is today, to words that we have, like from the Pope that said we've got to save Mother Earth. But, growing up in the 60s, we didn't have as many people on Earth as we have now. We didn't have many people in America as we have now. And we live different now. We went from a rural population to an urban population. And when you put a lot of people in one place, that create different challenges, because then the supply chain, when we wanted something, vegetables, we went out in the garden and we picked it.
Mhm.
Today, people in urban environments, where I forget the numbers sometime, but in many populations, whether you're in the continental United States or you go to a place like Haiti, where 80% of the people live in one city,
Mhm.
a concentration of people, or in China, when you look at the people that live in Beijing, or you go to South Korea, place I spent a lot of time in, where you got 7 to 8 million people in one city. That's that create different challenges. That you can't have everybody growing in their backyard. You can't have the chickens in your backyard. You can't have your pigs around. So we've changed the way we live. But the reality of the minute of what we do on Mother Earth has an impact on the ecosystem.
Understood. We powered by GEXO, the GeoCompass Explorers Institute, is rooted in grassroots indigenous populations that that are all throughout the global South. I myself am from an indigenous community in Central America, so I can definitely relate to the connection with the earth and just making sure that we do right and have good clean food and good clean resources. So how did your upbringing influence your values and your military leadership style?
Well, we number one, growing up on a subsistence farm in a large family, you learn the concept of teamwork,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn the concept of if you want something, you work for it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an expectation you were going to do the best you can to get it done the way it was described to you. But if you saw something that wasn't working, you intended to use your brains to figure it out or tell somebody if it wasn't working. So we used to have a term that I grew up with from the old folks, and they would say, "Don't put the dog with the sausage." And I used to use that term when I went in the Army, and guys said, "Well, Colonel, what are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I grew up on a cold, rainy night, and the old dog needed to go outside, or you set him out. The idea was to take him out, but don't go put him in the smokehouse where the sausage was.
Mm-hmm.
So the intent is to do something, but don't do nothing stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put the dog with the sausage." Yeah, don't put the dog with the sausage. Yeah, he'd be warm in here, but he eat all the sausage. Don't put the dog with the sausage. So a bit of that homespun wisdom is what I grew up with. That I think went beyond deep philosophy, but it gave us a work ethic and a use of common sense and don't do nothing stupid, but try to do the right thing. And then don't do anything that's a shortcut, and don't choose the easier wrong over the harder right. I mean, those are some of the principles that I grew up with in my youth.
I think I'm gonna add that one to my lexicon. That's a good one.
Yes,
Okay. So over your 37-year career, General, which experiences most shaped your leadership philosophy?
I think is how do you take a group of people, communicate with them from the time I was in a formation of 30 troops in a platoon to commanding a company of 125 to commanding a battalion of 800 to a brigade of 5,000 or a division of 18,000 or an army that trained and mobilized over 400,000 troops to go to war. In the 4 years I commanded First Army, is how do you communicate your intent, and then how do you give the orders and how you follow up on the orders to understand, and people understand why you're doing this. It's important that people understand the why.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's important that they understand the basic concept of how we're going to do it. And what is needed to be done, and leave enough room for people to be able to adapt and overcome based on the situation, because the plan will certainly change once they make contact with the execution, because things change. The weather can have an impact. If you have an opposing force and you're in a training event and there's an opposing force, that they will have a vote, that the other side always has a vote. The opposition always has a vote, that you may have to adjust your plan.
Mm-hmm.
And those things were basic principles that came along the way, that the easiest thing to do is give an order, executing it is a lot harder
Mhm.
because people can have different interpretation of what you said and how you said. So it's very clear to have a vision of what we want to do, so they have maximum flexibility on how to do it.
Mhm.
Because things will change.
So, if you could summarize the guiding principle of your service in just one sentence, what do you think it would be?
Accomplish the mission and take care of your people.
Accomplish the mission and take care of your people.
Yes.
So, what would you say differentiates effective crisis leadership from traditional command?
The priority in crisis leadership, regardless of what the situation, is to take care of the people, safety of the people first.
Mhm.
Because you could take the hill, but in the process of doing it, if you destroy everything, then what's the purpose of taking the hill?
Right. Right.
Or if you destroy the hill, how do you accomplish the mission in a crisis situation? And how do you, as a leader, create calm and chaos? Because in crisis leadership, because it's a crisis, by nature, it's chaos.
Mhm.
Because in a crisis, if you have control of a crisis, you don't have a crisis, you have an inconvenience.
Mhm.
There's a period of time in every crisis where you're trying to gain control of the situation. And if you have absolute control, you don't have a crisis, you have an inconvenience.
Mm. So how do you, what do you do and how do you balance the order with the empathy, especially in like a civilian involved crisis?
Make sure that everybody in the formation, uniform people as well as civilian helpers, that the priority is on the people. The priority is on everything that's living, the livestock, and the animals of nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's your priority. In Hurricane Rita, I went up to a situation where when the surge water came in, it trapped some dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
And I just left a situation where we were trying to save some beef cattle that were isolated on an island because it was surrounded by water. And I went to a situation where a reporter had just captured some of our Navy personnel who had gone into a lagoon, and they lifted the dolphins out of the water to get them back into the Gulf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you do everything you can to protect life in a crisis. And of course, that changed when the emphasis that in warfare is you are fighting the people that's fighting you, but you have to be aware of collateral damage of the citizens, for which have no engagement in the fight. So that's a balance you have to do, but in a natural disaster type crisis or man-made disaster that could have been caused by a chemical plant or a dam that wasn't properly maintained and it explodes. In each one of those cases, the idea is to save life.
Right.
And protect the environment, the human environment, as well as the natural environment.
Mm. How many times have you found yourself in a position where like the doctrine clashes with the intuition, with your intuition and your moral clarity in a crisis situation?
It happened during Katrina,
Mm-hmm.
during the evacuation on Katrina afternoon to Thursday. We were about to evacuate the people. We were evacuating people from the Superdome and about to evacuate them from the convention center the following day. And then a government official did a news conference and said, We got to stop the looting in New Orleans. And I'm giving my troops and the police the order to shoot to kill if they see anybody looting. And my staff in Atlanta called me and told me about what she said. And I called the governor up and told her, I said, we don't do that. We don't shoot our own people. We don't do that. These people are going into places to get food and water. And I don't call that looting. I call it survival. And even if it was, we don't shoot people. We don't tell soldiers and police to shoot our own citizens. We just don't do that. And she reversed that order. But at the same time, that was a challenge to make sure everybody understood we're not shooting people over that event. Because our job there is to save people, not to shoot them.
I don't know if you know this, but your weapons down order reverberated across the planet, and it was a major symbol of the balance between empathy and the balance between order. It reverberated across the planet, and I've been everywhere. And I've been on the front lines of conservation and emergency response, and your name holds a lot of weight around the globe, General.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I do get noticed every now and then when I go places around the country. And even went to Paris last year, and somebody walked up to me and said, put the guns down. And how did I know somebody would? That person was from the United States, but they did recognize that moment. So it has been used to as a way to say, let's get the job done, but let's do it in the proper way. Don't be stuck on stupid.
What did an order like that tell you about your peers and the people you were working with at the time? How did that affect you? The fact that that was an actual order that came from the leadership.
Well, leadership, politicians, they do what they think is popular. And at the time, the government was getting a lot of pressure from the media in Washington to do something about looting, because the reporters would see people going in stores getting food and water, and they call that looting. And they were putting pressure on the governor that, we want to help these people, but boy, they're looting the stores. And again, they come back to what people perceive as absolute values. I tell people all the time, what would you do if you had no food and water and there was a store over there with 4 foot of water in it, and you went in and you got a case of water and some food to feed your baby? Would you do it? Or would you stand out there and starve? And it's a human reaction. We'd go in the store and get the food and get the water. And that's what people did. I think in some cases politicians can say things that are popular, but they may not necessarily be right.
Did you get a lot of pushback for your stance and your command philosophy in that crisis situation?
I got attacked for telling people put their guns down, but they really went after me for allegedly taking people guns. So the gun rights advocates said, I took people guns. Well, we'll not let you get on an airplane with a gun in your hand. It ain't gonna happen. It don't happen no time in America. Can you just walk on a plane if you got a gun with you? It's not gonna happen. So if you want to ride and you want to get out of this mess, you're not having a gun with you. So we confiscated guns, and then the word went out, well, the general confiscated people guns. I didn't do that, but it was a rule. You're not getting on a commercial airplane with a gun. It ain't gonna happen. And you're not getting on one of the buses we sent to pick you up with a gun, because everybody who went to the bus to get on it, we did a TSA level search. And if they had guns or knives, we confiscated them. But that's not my rule. But it was a rule that exists, and even today, every now and then, I'll post something on social media, and somebody will pop up and say, "He took people guns." Well, yeah, the TSA will take them too. You're not getting on the airplane with a gun, bro.
I had the opportunity to be present years back at one of your, I think it was a TEDx talk in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and you were emphasizing this. The torrential rains are picking up again here in the jungle, but we're just going to keep pushing forward with this interview. You were emphasizing resilience, resilient citizenry, resilient people. Can you elaborate on that and talk a little bit more about some of the things that you saw in Katrina relating to that?
Yeah, well, the idea of resilience is the ability to bounce back, that things are going to happen. It's going to flood. We're going to have droughts. We're going to have fires. We're going to have earthquakes. And we'll even have terrorist attacks. We got to be resilient from the perspective of understanding that things can happen, or we'll lose electricity out of our control, and we don't give up. We find a way to survive, because this too will pass. As bad as it is, this too will pass. History has shown that in the most challenging of situations. So the idea of being a resilient citizen is being aware in your community, and if you're in an area that has flooded before, the number one defense for flooding is to leave before the flood exceeds your capacity to leave. And when you're leaving, you should have your community organized to ensure people that are disabled, people without a ride. You organize your street or your community that somebody is looking out for a neighbor that needs a ride, and you take them out with you. You build resilience into your community. Or if an event happened in your community, as a resilient citizen, you organize the neighbors and you help people that need help until other help arrive. That's the idea of resiliency, the ability to bounce back, the ability to stay alive, and the ability to organize the community to survive or to either evacuate. But the code word I leave in New Orleans, we leave no one behind. Because when we went into the homes of the 1,400 or so people that died, most of the people that died in Katrina were elderly, disabled, and poor, and most of them were alone at home. They were alone, they were elderly or disabled and poor. And sometimes they were all three categories, and they were alone. So somebody thought somebody was going to get them out, and it didn't happen. So how do you organize your street to make sure if there's an evacuation, no one get left behind? That's resilience.
Can you tell me a little bit about Green Army?
Yeah, I live in a place called Kansas Alley, where we have about 150 chemical plants. And when I retired from the Army, I moved back to Louisiana to this location. I live in a country club on a golf course. And but we're surrounded along the river by chemical plants. And at the time, I was just basically doing motivational speaking across the country about creating a culture of preparedness and resilience. And we had an event that happened in the rural area south of Baton Rouge in Assumption Parish, where a salt dome, which is a natural geological formation under the earth as we stand. And that salt dome was being used to extract brine, which is a very salty mixture to use in the chemical or petrochemical industry. And at the same time, they would inject gases, everything from butane to propane, natural gas in the cavity in the salt dome for storage. And in the process of doing that, they broke the salt dome and the salt dome subsided. In other words, it's like breaking an egg. And when they broke it, the cavity of the salt dome, the subsidence took trees underneath the water in the bayou corn. And that incident was pretty disturbing to me, to believe that a company from Texas could get the authority to come to Louisiana and break this natural environment to a point where people had to be evacuated because they couldn't live there anymore. And in that process, the people fought with the government for assistance, and they were getting no attention from the government because the government was almost protecting the company that actually caused the incident. And the people asked me to come and use my Katrina voice to give attention in the state to what was a disaster, but had not been treated like a disaster. And this was a man-made disaster by this company. And I went to those people. I understood within a week what their challenge was, and immediately started to draw attention with local and national media on what was happening. And we were able to get enough attention to try to get some justice for those people who lost their homes because they could not move back into that area. And that the company would attempt to comply to the Clean Water and the Clean Air Act. And thus was born the Green Army. And the mission of the Green Army is to find solutions for pollution. It's not to put businesses out of work, but to prevent them from polluting the earth. Because I think we have a human right to clean air, clean water, and safe land. And if you mess something up, you should clean it up.
How do you define peace and security?
Peace and security is I think is a human right that everybody should enjoy. That you should have the right to live in peace, and the more secure you are, the more you have the ability to live in peace. Because it was always man-made, and I said man-made, tyrants who will try to want to take what you've got or to disregard the right for you to be in peace. The right for you to live on your land, the right for you to practice the religion and politics you want. So you have a right to that, and that's a human right that I think people around the world expect. But there are always tyrants that will challenge that, as we see right now in the Russia-Ukraine war, where one country thought they had the right to go occupy another one, and that war continues today. And as we see what's happening in between Israel and Gaza, a struggle that's been going on for hundreds of years and has not been resolved. But people should have a human right and should have the security to protect themselves, because there will always be aggressors. I guess there's a verse in the Bible, there will always be wars or rumors of wars. And that's a human condition we have not solved. And at the same time, we have natural disasters, floods and fires and earthquakes and tsunamis. All of that we got to be able to adapt and overcome. because the natural disasters we have few control over. But the longer we live and the more people we have on Earth, as we go from 7 to 10 billion people, we know human impact is having an impact on global warming. And as the oceans warm and we excrete more methane in the air from petrochemical business and the production of natural gas, the Earth is warming at an enormous rate. And as the Earth warms, it changed the weather pattern, and we are getting these atmospheric rivers, and we're getting drought in places in the world. If you look around like Africa and the Middle East, where it's creating people to have to fight over water or either migrate because they can't live on the land. Or if you look at the global south and the great migration north, some of that is been exacerbated by the impact of global warming, because the climate has changed and it's hard for people to have a living there. And then the other thing has occurred is bad governments that don't respect the right of people and people want to go to a place where they can be free. And regardless of what we think, people do not respect borders. People go where they can be in a place where they can live free and live in harmony. People will migrate. It goes back, and you can go to the oldest books that have been written. It's happened before, and it'll happen again as long as they have places that they can't sustain themselves on, or because of tyrants that have no regard for the people, and where people have no rights. People will migrate. That's why we got about 25 million refugees roaming the world now.
What advice do you offer to organizations focused on resilience and environmental protection?
Well, act where you are. You know, think globally, but act locally. You know, when I was the first Army commander, I was driving around one of my camps one day, in a place where the troops had recently had a meal, and I saw a few styrofoam cups on the ground. And I looked on my computer, styrofoam, and I'd known this from some time back. It's harmless when you look at it and you use it. That's a one-time use product when you use it for a cup or a plate. And I saw these things had drifted off into the wood line and into the bayou. And I said, what in the hell, why are we using styrofoam? And I made an order that we will use what we had in stock, but we were going to transition to paper. And I put that order out at all of our mobilization site where we were training troops for combat, because there was no reason to use styrofoam. We don't know how long it will last in the environment, because nobody has lived that long. It will outlive us, but it clogs up the environment, and it has no purpose once you've used it one time. So for our convenience, we cannot override our convenience for the environmental impact of what our trash do. And we went from my thought transition from focusing on styrofoam to now focusing on plastic, one-time use plastic. And I think we're starting to make an impact by talking about that, because I was on a major airline 2 weeks ago, flying home, and I got a couple drinks, and both drinks came in paper cups. Up until that time, they were serving using plastic glasses, one-time use plastic glasses. And every time I used one, I cringed. And now they have transitioned, because we are talking about being conscious of the environment, to using paper cups, which we used to use before plastic became such an abundant product. And some of that plastic is produced right here in Kansas Alley from the petrochemical industry because they've made it convenient and it looked nifty, but it has a tremendous impact in the production of that plastic because they produce it and they ship it out of Louisiana in little balls, and then they take it to a factory overseas, produce it into the cups and glasses, one-time use, and then they ship it back in the terms of a finished product, and that creates a lot of pollution. So I think we are constantly, as we give rise to finding solutions to pollution, we are going to have to take on the idea of the amount of plastic that's ending up in the natural environment. And I just saw on the news feed the last few days of a plastic island in the Pacific that's off the coast of the United States, of an island that's been created from accumulated plastic that's just floating out there. We as a generation don't have a right to pollute the natural environment that the next generation is going to have to deal with. But that's a historical cycle that we need to start talking about, because the real impact of it may not affect my generation, but future generations as we go from 7 to 10 billion people, where we're going to have to raise 30% more food on less land and address the issues of imbalance in the ability to provide everybody with fresh water, safe drinking water, because only 1% of the world's water is drinkable, while over 80% of the globe is covered in water. Only 1% is drinkable. So we have to embrace technology that we can drink water anywhere and create technology to be able to clean that water. And at the same time, we got to prevent people from polluting the water with all sorts of chemical runoff, as well as stop the dumping of plastics, because there's still countries that are throwing their garbage in the ocean. Nobody give us the right to pollute the ocean. And that's what's happening around the world. And up until recently, all ships at sea, the common practice was to dump their trash in the ocean. That has to stop.
Yes, sir. Powered by GEXI, we just had a conference recently in Costa Rica discussing that very island that you're talking about, and how we can attack and clean that thing up. And it's a lot. It's an international, global affair. And you were talking about one-time use plastics. They made them illegal here in Belize. Everything going forward is supposed to be biodegradable. We still got so much of that plastic still moving around in circulation. So yeah, we'll do our best to curb a lot of that. You were talking about the youth. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Say again.
No way.
No, you were speaking on the youth and the future, and I wanted to know who were your most influential mentors as you were growing up as a youth and even through the ranks of the military?
Well, initially it started at home with my father, who raised the 12 of us, he and my mom, on the farm. He was a great example of, if you want something, you work for it. And you use all the resources around you, that because we were poor, we didn't, if a tire broke on a tractor, you fixed it. You just didn't go to the store and buy another one because you didn't have the money. It's amazing how innovative you can be when you have to learn how to adapt and overcome. And that was a big thing I learned from him. And then how you use all your resources for the best that you can for good. And if you had an abundance of something, then you shared it with your neighbors. If all your tomatoes came in and you had more than you can use, then you would offer them to people in the community that could use it. You just didn't let it rot in the garden. So that was a basic value. And I learned a lot from my county agent, a guy named Mr. Smith, and from my agriculture teacher, Mr. Roberts. They were very influential. And from a gentleman that I worked on a dairy farm after school in the afternoon during high school and 2 years in college, a guy named Mr. Schuse. All three of them were instrumental in shaping me, and he used to pick me up on the weekend at 5:15 in the morning, and we would go milk the cows. And I was his helper, and I learned a lot from him. And I remember one day there was another kid came over, and he was older than I, and he got to drive the tractor, and that made me angry because he was driving the tractor and I wasn't, because that was a big deal to a young boy to be the one driving the tractor. And after we got done with the task, we were sitting down and he was having a cup of coffee. He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, you let the other boy come over here," and he kind of took over. And, he was about 8 or 9 years older than me with a lot more experience. And he was kind of bossing me around and telling me what to do. And I didn't like that. He said, "Look," and he had a box of matches in his shirt. He was a smoker, and he took that box of match out and he handed me one match. He said, "Break that match." And I broke it. And then he gave me 2 matches. He said, "Break that." That was, still could break it. Then he gave me like 4 matches, 5 matches. And the more matches he gave me, I couldn't break it because of the combined strength of the matches. He said, "You got to learn how to work on a team. And you got to figure out your position on that team. You're not always going to be the leader of the team. So learn how to work as a team, because everything's stronger when you work as a team." And that was a lesson learned that stayed with me. And I told that story even to my young officers.
Yeah, engaged parents, engaged community is very important. I noticed you mentioned 4-H earlier. We do a lot of work with those big 6 youth organizations. We do a lot of work with scouting. The World Organization of Scouting Movement and the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. So it's very important, for the community to, like they say, it takes a village. So it's very important for engaged parents and engaged community. What core value should emerging leaders adopt today, in your opinion?
I say be conscious of, we have so much access to information now. And I'm thinking my way through this is like Maya Angelou said it, and I think Gandhi said a version of it. Be careful of what you, who you associate yourself with, what you read, and what you say, because it'll be a reflection of what you do. So be careful, because we see it happening now, and we have a whole industry of influencers that, because people can be influenced in a wrong way too, that can be harmful to others. That whatever we concentrate on, we can be good at it. We can make an impact, we can make a living, we can be free to do what we want, but freedom comes with a responsibility that we don't use the mechanisms of modern times for evil, or to subjugate others, or to do environmental harm. That the concept of drill baby drill sounds good, but what's the environmental impact of that?
Mm-hmm.
You with me? And then how do we, on the other hand, as environmentalists, how do we popularize the idea of using technology to find solutions to pollution without demonizing others? You with me?
Right. I understand.
So there's a way to get this done, but let's get it done in a proper way. I had a guy call me today from New York, and he wanted me to support an effort to put a sticker on all gas stoves that said, beware that this thing will, a gas stove in your house emanates carbon monoxide and it can be harmful to your health. He's not saying don't get a gas stove, but be aware it's got a warning on it, like a box of cigars or a car that said don't go beyond this speed. It's a warning label. Because from their study, they're finding the use of gas stoves in homes can be harmful to people and maybe causing as many deaths as cigarettes.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And there's a lot of people around the world have an aspiration to get a gas stove because gas is more available than electricity.
We developed after attending your TEDx talk, we came back to Belize and developed a program called ARCS, ARCS, Adaptability, Resilience, and Continuity Systems. And it seems like now with the inundation of all the AI and the information, that we having to tune it to apply to, staying afloat through this great inundation of information that's happening right now. So I can definitely dig as far as what you're saying about being careful what you take in. Everything is food, so you got to be careful what you consume.
Yeah, the environment you're in and what you consume, becomes the way you think. And there are people here in South Louisiana think they're absolutely right, that what we see happening with the environment, you notice I've never used the word climate change the whole time we talk, right?
Right. Why is that?
Because it's a politically charged word.
Uh-huh.
And people have been conditioned to that in the chemical belt that I live in. That means that it could impact jobs.
Mm.
So I use the word pollution, and I'll go into communities that rely, and most of the jobs are in oil and gas business, and I ask people, are there places you can't fish anymore because it's polluted? I never said the word climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Because somewhere along the way, the intellectuals in America got on their bandwagon and they just used the word climate change, where actually we're talking about the back of pollution,
right?
And from global warming. And I said, are there places you can't hunt anymore? And you know what? These locals are pissed. They are upset.
Mm-hmm.
Because companies have came in and they've done things to our coastal area that changed the ecosystem. When they explored for oil, they put exploration canals in the wetlands that allowed saltwater intrusion that has destroyed our wetlands in Louisiana off the coast, which are key to subsiding the hurricanes when they come.
Mm-hmm.
And we're losing our coastline every day because they didn't close the exploration canals, or they left oil well pits, just plots of old big oil that have seeped into the ground and killed the vegetation. And then when you lose the vegetation, you lose the soil. Mm-hmm. And we're losing our coastline. And those people are angry. And many of them make their living in the petrochemical industry. But they recognize what has happened over the last 80 years, that while that brought jobs, it also, they didn't clean up their mess. They didn't follow the rules of your mom. If you mess something up, you clean it up. And now they're having to live with it.
Yeah. Total
because
mess.
they see the direct impact of pollution.
Total mess. We and that's all over. That's everywhere. Like we have a major problem with when they develop the hotels and the different lodges and things that wanted to have the beautiful beachfront view. They removed a lot of the mangroves that serve as breaks, storm breaks. So there's a lot of erosion and things happening now, and we're losing the coastlines, and then the storm surges are coming way into the land. So it's happening all over, General. And
and that's it. We got to help be a voice for that, and that happens at the local government. Yeah, we're going to put a resort here. It's going to create jobs. It's going to bring people in. Oh, okay. But how are you going to position that thing where it don't impact the natural environment, the flow of water, the protection of the coastline? Because we see it happen time and again. And it's going to get even more challenging as we go from 7 to 10 billion people.
Right.
Because the population will continue to grow.
Right.
And as the population grow, and people live in the metropolitan, they're going to want to go out and touch grass. They want to go to the Caribbean. They want to go to the global south, to places that are not overpopulated. And when they get there, they will be treated to be able to put their foot in the natural environment. But how much of that natural environment will still be natural because of what you just described?
Correct. Yes, sir. So I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, and then we can close. If you could just if you could design a global initiative like blending preparedness, environmental resilience, and empowerment, what would that look like?
Well, again, kind of think globally, but act locally.
Mm-hmm.
Understand the impact of the current situation for which we live in, that we live in a global community that should have some consciousness that as we have more people on the earth, we're diminishing the natural environment as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
We have more polluted air, we have more polluted water, and we have less arable land to grow food on. We need to be aware of that. But we got to act locally. We got to be involved with local and state government or provincial government to ensure that we are trying to protect the natural environment. At the same time, we have to make space to go to 10 billion people. Because people will want to come to Belize to get out of a crowded city of 7 or 8 million people, and come enjoy the wonders of nature that still exists there. But at the same time, in doing that, we can't destroy the natural environment to accommodate them.
Right. I haven't seen a model that works better than cadre anywhere yet. Right.
But I'd like to get your thoughts on that too, while we're talking.
I definitely agree with starting locally and thinking globally. I think sometimes we tend to overthink things. So what we do is we mobilize organizations like scouting or like cadre-based organizations that are working, and we like the children that come out of those organizations are kind of equipped to to tackle and to be leaders and to get into a lot of this front line work that we do. You know, from knowing how to tie every knot imaginable to just having the empathy and the forward thinking of being engaged with the planet. They're not stuck behind those video games and you know, they're definitely out here in the wilderness and in the outdoors. That's very important. So I'm definitely with you on that.
There's a term that's floating around in the intellectual circles now that people need to be able to go out and touch grass.
Yeah.
And there's a big emphasis on Gen X and Gen Z that they're missing something and that they don't go out and touch grass. That means touch nature.
Yeah, get grounded. Get well grounded.
If they got 2 hours, they sit behind a computer. They're not walking in a park,
right,
or going to appreciate the bounties of nature. They're not touching grass. They've been connected to technology and not to the natural earth and the people around them.
I'm a jungle boy at heart, so it's like I feel like my face is about to burn off if I have to sit behind a computer too long to do a report or something like that, you know. So I don't understand focusing your energy into the game console that long. I can't. It's something that I don't really get, you know. But what we have done is so we do UAV training, drone training, and things like that, and a lot of that is virtual.
Beautiful.
So what we do is we take that gaming mentality and gamify our drone piloting instruction and things like that, and now EVTOL, electrical vertical takeoff and landing, is becoming a big thing. So we're gonna segue and move into that very soon. So we noticed that a lot of the kids that were really into gaming, they really acclimate to that project well, you know. And I think you got to kind of be tricky with it, you know, like they need to have the same kind of fun, but also pick up some kind of occupational skills, you know, while they engage in putting so much time into a console like that. So at least come out of it with some kind of certification or something, you know.
Yeah, the idea is to be keyboard smart, but use it for a useful function.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and then a lot of people are worried about AI taking their jobs, but one thing that we've noticed is that there's going to be a big demand for more outdoors, more conservation style, research style jobs. So we're getting we have a program called Neoteric occupational development, where we're getting a lot of these youth future ready for these new jobs, and you know, being able to be out here and monitor the rainforests and things like that. So you know, we're using we're being very creative in how we're using the technology, but still the same. We're making sure that there's a big human balance. You know, a lot of people want these machines to do everything for them, but honestly, it can free you up on a lot of the labor intensive jobs, but then and give us the opportunity to attack a lot of these conservation problems and challenges that we're facing, you know.
Well, AI is a knowledge-based system, but you can't drink it and you can't eat it.
No. No.
But it may enable you to make what you drink safe and make what you eat safe.
Exactly.
And it may help you preserve the natural environment, but it's not the end all. And you know, we like computer chips, but you can't eat them. It's a knowledge-based system, and we should not confuse that with how we might use it to help protect the natural world that we live in.
Well, General, we speak to and we interact with a lot of youth who are going through wayward stages and trying to find their bearing and orient themselves to higher levels of understanding. So, in closing, what can you share with the youth, especially the wayward ones out here looking for something to believe in and something to focus themselves on?
Yeah, that we just didn't happen on this earth by chance. We're here for a purpose. Find your purpose and be whatever that might be. But find your purpose. Find that what excites you, that inspires you, and do it. And embrace the impossible. Our future is based on this earth, on our ability to do the impossible. Our earth has evolved in people doing the impossible. Because the future, to be able to live on this earth with the pollution that has evolved, will come to a point where our technology can be driven by finding solutions to pollution and growing from 7 to 10 billion people on this earth. And much of that will involve in us creating technology that can sustain us. And I gave a speech at Georgia Tech. You can see that speech to some engineers. And I said, what happened if one of you were to create a little box that you could get from a big box store, or a drone could drop it off at your house, thinking forward, and your mom took it in a closet and plugged it into a plug, just plug it in the wall. And if the power ran out, the power went off, that little box would run the house for 30 days. And a young engineer up front put his hand up and said, General, that won't work. You don't understand how power works. I said, man, why did you, I told you that. I want you to find a solution, because that's the way we're going to have to solve this problem. Because without energy, it changes the way we live. And oh, by the way, there are about 1 billion people in the world with no electricity. Because when you figure that out for our convenience, that you can plug this thing in the wall and it will run the house, literally, you'll be Bill Gates rich, son. You need to figure out how we do that. Because when you solve that problem for convenience in the Western world, you will give 1 billion people ability to have electricity, to be able to have a refrigerator to save their medicine and their food, and ability to have clean water anywhere in the world if they got electricity. And that's what your little box can create. Yeah, I know it's impossible now, but you're an engineer, figure it out. We've got to be like Ben Franklin. We've got to be serial innovators, finding solutions to things. And by doing the impossible, we are able to adapt and overcome based on the impact that we have had on our natural world, our water, our air, and our land. And that's all I got to say about that, as Forrest Gump was saying.
Thank you for that, General. Empowered by GEXI, we're here to empower the youth to explore, experience, and excel. And I don't think you can get a better message than that. And this is Dr. Chop signing out. And we'll pick up with Earth Optimistics next time. Thank you.
Okay, Doc. Good luck, Doc.